Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a truly dominant run at the Lille Regional Championships to take home the crown with ARIADOS. Now, the trainer who won this tournament was actually in their first ever competitive tournament. Their name is Boom20, and they dominated the field with honestly the best ARIADOS gameplay I have ever seen. He put on an absolute clinic. So, without further ado, I'm going to be showcasing some highlighted matchups from his run to claim the title of Lille Regional Champion. To round out the rest of his team of 6, since this is a show 6 pick 3 format, to pair with ARIADOS, he's running Shadow Drapion, Dunsparce, Malamar, Shadow Quagsire, and Azumarill. All his Pokemon running pretty standard movesets across the board, Quagsire with the Legacy Aquatail Stone Edge combination, Azumarill, as is the standard, the Ice Beam and Play Rough, so foregoing any potential Hydro Pumps. And his first streamed match was against Chun, a battler who has top cut quite a bit in the past. And it's an amazing lead in Game 1 for Boom as he leads Azumarill into Mandibuzz. We're going to see a save switch to Shadow Drapion, and this is where things actually get a little bit murky. There's no strong counter to the Shadow Drapion on the line of 3 that Boom brought. So Boom is just going to stay in here, absorb the crunch, and return fire with the Ice Beam. The Ice Beam is shielded. In comes the ARIADOS. ARIADOS will immediately be met with a crunch, and that is going to grab a shield. The switch timers are very misaligned here, so Chun will have the ability to switch out in the future. Chun is going to no-shield this lunge into the Drapion, not enough to KO, switch clocks up, and in comes the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz, of course, one of the few bad matchups that ARIADOS has in this meta. ARIADOS is going to return fire with a lunge dealing significant damage, and Chun throwing instantly, wanting to apply this damage before the switch timer's up. Switch timer is now up for Boom. Boom gonna bank a ton of energy on the ARIADOS. His clock's up, so he's able to switch back into the Azumarill. Chun still gonna be stuck in here for honestly not too much longer. After this next aerial ace, the switch timer will be up, so Chun will be able to reserve the Mandibuzz. And that's the wonderful thing about this dynamic 50-second switch timer, is there's so much more ability to play your way out of hard counter situations. The Ice Beam is gonna land onto the Quagsire. Realistically, Chun did not bring a strong check to Azumarill on the team, so getting through this Azumarill has definitely been a team effort. It's a CMP tie, Quagsire forcing the shield with the Stone Edge. Ice Beam is going to land. In comes the Shadow Drapion and the perfect Poison Sting farm down. What a play. Back in comes the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz now so far behind on energy as this Shadow Drapion is able to unleash Aquatail after Aquatail in this matchup. The final shield comes up from the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz just looking to try and get some damage in this matchup, but we do see a sigh of relief there from Boom as he knows this game is over. In comes the Drapion. Aquatail not going to be a problem here. It will be able to knock out, but he has so much energy on the ARIADOS that he can fire off these back-to-back lunges. Lunge number 1 is going to KO the Drapion, and lunge number 2 is going to KO the Mandibuzz. So right off the bat, terrific energy management with that ARIADOS, preserving a ton of energy, switching out, and that energy secures a Game 1 victory. Moving into the next match, leading Shadow Drapion versus Shadow Drapion, so a very neutral lead. The winner of this lead matchup is going to be whoever is going to either invest shields or whoever wins the CMP tie between the two Drapion, as 2 Aquatails is enough to KO. Going to fire off an Aquatail, Chun is going to no-shield, the Aquatail is going to land, and it's Boom. Boom is able to win that CMP tie and force an early shield from Chun. Boom is actually going to decide to let this through, just fully sacrificing switch advantage in exchange for a shield advantage. In comes Quagsire. Chun pivots out into the Dugong, hoping that the Quagsire will switch out, but Boom is staying. Boom is saying, this is a fine matchup. I can land a Stone Edge. Stone Edge is going to inflict a ton of damage, and now after this Icy Wind lands, you could potentially look to bring in the ARIADOS. And there is the star of the show, the ARIADOS. ARIADOS over farming by 1, playing to the CMP tie. Again, perfect energy awareness, going for the Trailblaze as well. This Trailblaze is going to offset the attack drop from the Icy Wind. So now the ARIADOS is going to be back to its normal attacking prowess. In comes the Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion is low enough that ARIADOS will be able to knock it out. ARIADOS shielding up. ARIADOS looking to overfarm and going for a Trailblaze on the CMP tie. Trailblaze is resisted, but he knows it's low enough that it KOs, and now Chun is going to have to deal with a boosted ARIADOS with energy and a shield. Chun, his clock's not up. He has the send in Serperior here, and look at the lunge. ARIADOS on an absolute rampage. That damage is unreal. ARIADOS going to be shielding up, and honestly, at this point, he can just Poison Sting all the way down. There's the switch out into the Dugong. He's not even gonna throw a move, just Poison Stinging down all the remaining Pokemon to take the 2-0 series win. The next match we'll take a look at is the first match of day number 2. Boom versus Lurgan Rocket. Lurgan's running a very polarizing team with Shadow Magnezone, Gastrodon, Galarian Moltres, Azumarill, Shadow Drapion, and Chestnut. The leads are set for game 1, and it's a tough lead for Boom as he leads ARIADOS into the Galarian Moltres. Going to choose to stay in this matchup, ARIADOS with the consistent lunge spam can make this a very close matchup, even though the Galarian Moltres, as long as even shields are used, will typically emerge victorious. The perfect overfarm by Lurgan, he's going to bait with the Ancient Power. Ancient Power is going to be shielded up by Boom. Boom, farming up, tried to CMP tie, but Lurgan says no. Lurgan is going to go for the overfarm. Boom, farming up, and a perfect catch, catching the double debuffed Ancient Power onto the Azumarill. That does absolutely nothing. Galarian Moltres farming up energy, banking an Ancient Power, but out comes that Shadow Magnezone. Shadow Magnezone, ever terrifying, as it's going to be a complete wall to energy from the Azumarill. But even so, it's so frail that energy still does a lot. Lurgan with a timing mistake, throwing on alignment here. We're going to see a Shield of the Wild Charge. The Mirror Shot is reached, but this bubble that goes through will KO, so Azumarill is able to win switch advantage in this game. So Azumarill able to get that farm down. In comes the Shadow Drapion, and Lurgan very comfortable to no shield here as the Ice Beam is going to connect. The switch out to the ARIADOS. ARIADOS firing off a lunge. Lurgan is going to commit the shield, but Lurgan with that Brave Bird loaded is just so deadly. Well, I actually think not quite the Brave Bird yet in Ancient Power, but soon to be a Brave Bird. Down goes the ARIADOS. And now for Boom, it's about trying to anticipate when will Lurgan get this switch in. His clock's not up. He can't save the Quagsire. The perfect play by Lurgan. Brave Bird, massive damage onto the Quagsire. He cannot switch out, unfortunately for him. So he's not able to save this energy. He's forced to throw it instead. And Drapion with a move will be able to secure the game 1 win for Lurgan. So Boom did what he could in game number 1, but it's not enough. And Lurgan is 1 win away from advancing. Game number 2, a bad lead for Boom as he leads ARIADOS into the Shadow Drapion, but a very nice catch. Again, utilizing that Azumarill as a safe switch, catching that Aqua Tail, and now the Drapion in a bit of an awkward position. Drapion is going to stay in, fire off a Crunch. This is going to really desync the switch timers here. The Crunch is going to land. Azumarill will go for the Ice Beam. Lurgan is going to no shield. Drapion taking quite a lot of damage. Drapion going to bank a Crunch, and there's the switch out into the Gastrodon. Gastrodon will be met with an Ice Beam. Immediate no shield by Lurgan. He knows Ice Beam not particularly threatening to the Gastrodon, but we see an aggressive switch in, taking advantage of the desync timers. ARIADOS firing off the Trailblaze and pressuring a shield. This energy does add up quite a bit. ARIADOS with a call to make, calls the bait, calls the body slam bait. There's nothing Gastrodon players love more than going for a body slam when they have the earth power. He reads Lurgan like a book. Lurgan goes for the farm down and does not get it. The ARIADOS barely clinging to life, but makes the Trailblaze, denies the energy, and now Boom is in the driver's seat of this match. There's a 2-shield Shadow Quagsire, and even with a catch, there's no way for Lurgan to win. Lurgan does get the catch, a perfectly predicted throw of that charge move, 1 past the energy, but it's still not gonna matter. Lurgan's only win con is the Brave Bird. Boom clicks shield, and we're going to a game number 3, and Lurgan's just gonna stop tapping as he realizes there's no point in playing this out, as we're now going to move on to a decisive game 3 in this series. And for game number 3, it's Galarian Moltres into Azumarill. Boom now getting the lead call right for the first time in this series. Shadow Drapion as the save switch. Drapion farming up a ton of energy. We will see the shield as the Ice Beam gets fired off by the Azumarill. If you're Boom, you would love to have some energy thrown on the Azumarill before you potentially think about switching out here. The Crunch is going to land. There's the switch out into the Quagsire. Quagsire going to take a lot of damage here. Crunch immediate no shield, as this will not be enough to knock out. The Crunch not going to cut it. This is an Aqua Tail. It does not KO. And Boom knows it. He's going to let it go. He understands that he does survive there. An attempted catch by Lurgan, but Boom with the lightning fast reflexes to fire off the correct move of Aqua Tail. In comes ARIADOS. ARIADOS in a pretty nice position. This is only going to be the body slam from the Gastrodon. ARIADOS can now go for a perfect overfarm of 4 Poison Stings and the move. This Trailblaze will deliver a knockout if it's no shielded, and Lurgan lets it go. Lurgan's going to try and win with the Moltres, but this is a boosted lunge. It's going to do so much damage. Lunge connects, quick switch into the Azumarill, and now this Galarian Moltres desperately needs a boost if it wants to be able to make it to a third move here, as the bubble damage just continues to chip away at that health bar. That boosted lunge did so much damage, and these bubbles now have the Moltres right around 20% HP, and each bubble gets it lower and lower and lower. Another ancient power, another shield. Boom looking for the farm down and gets the farm down, and Boom is gonna take this series. The applause from Lurgan, very well played there by Boom. Boom keeps bringing the ARIADOS, and it keeps delivering terrific results. We're now going to zoom ahead to the winners finals, which is Boom versus Palasha. The game starts a little bit late as far as the broadcast, but it was a Kanto Marowak lead into a Drapion, and Boom was forced to save switch into the ARIADOS. ARIADOS lands the Trailblaze, but this is a losing matchup for ARIADOS in all even shielding scenarios. We now see a nice switch out and a catch by Palasha as she's able to catch the lunge onto her ARIADOS. That was a boosted lunge, so it will do quite a lot of damage. Firing off a lunge, and Boom is going to let this go, as since it's debuffed, it will not be enough to knock out. Switch timer's up, in comes the Drapion. Drapion and Aqua Tail would not be lethal there, so he makes a really good decision to not throw it. Instead, he can look to overfarm, and even though he's now debuffed, a debuffed Crunch will be able to deliver a knockout onto this shiny ARIADOS. Palasha lets it go, Crunch KOs, and now this Alolan Marowak is incredibly low, firing the Aqua Tail instantly here in case the Marowak decided to go for the Bone Club. Switch Clock not available, and down goes Drapion. In comes the Quagsire. Quagsire going to be met with this Bone Club. Bone Club is going to connect. In comes the Azumarill, and this endgame is going to be a bit of a tricky one, but it honestly feels okay for Boom, because Boom saved the ARIADOS. The ARIADOS so flexible at safe switching it, stalling out the timer, saving energy, because the ARIADOS, if I'm not mistaken, has a Trailblaze loaded. A Trailblaze loaded means Palasha cannot afford to shield this. The Stone Edge is going to land, getting the Azumarill low. The switch into the ARIADOS could have forced a simul KO with Poison Stings. Palasha is forced to throw energy. Ice Beam is going to be able to pick up the knockout, but it just gives farm to the Quagsire. She clicks the move, but she does not get it, and we're going to a game number 2. This is a positive lead for Boom, as he's going to be leading the Drapion into the ARIADOS of Palasha. One thing to note, in these tournament circumstances, when a game ends, there is a brief pause at the end there. So, the game did work as intended in that final match, where Boom is supposed to be able to get that farm down and deny that move. Going to fire off a Crunch. Crunch shielded up by the ARIADOS. ARIADOS over farming significantly, going for a Trailblaze, but he's able to catch the Trailblaze onto his own ARIADOS, preserving the Drapion, saving energy there, and now this energy Palasha is forced to throw is honestly not particularly effective. In comes the Marowak. Boom going to go for a lunge. He's hoping this lunge will allow him to live 3 Mud Slaps and make it to a move here, but he doesn't get the move. Much like Palasha in game 1, he does not get that last second move. Back in comes the Drapion, going for the Aqua Tail, and this is going to force a shield from Palasha. Down 2 shields, but this Kanto Marowak is going to be able to output quite a lot of damage. The Bone Club is going to be shielded, banks a lot of energy, sends in the ARIADOS, and this is going to force a charge attack fired off by the Azumarill. Perfect overfarm by Boom, again doing what he can, very precise mechanics, but it's Azumarill versus Azumarill, and Palasha has so much energy available on this Marowak. Boom's not out of it yet, though, still does have that Drapion on 1 HP as a potential catch opportunity, and still has a shield remaining, whereas Palasha has none. Play rough after play rough traded in this matchup. This is going to be a very tense endgame going right down to the wire. Firing off the play rough into the Azumarill. Azumarill looks like it can survive another play rough after this as well, just based on the damage that that play rough just did. Play rough shielded up, and this is going to be very, very close. Going for the play rough. I believe this will not quite KO. It'll be very close. Play rough lands. Simultaneous switch. Tried to go for the catch, but the catch attempt is unsuccessful. Great patience by Palasha. Bone Club number 1, followed by Bone Club number 2, and she's going to get the equalizer here. This series, the best of 5 since it is a finals, is now tied up at 1-1. For game number 3, it's a good lead for Boom. Shadow Quagsire into the Shadow K-Wack. K-Wack staying in this matchup because there's the Drapion in the back. Palasha is ABA weak to the Quagsire. Palasha with an early shield on that Aqua Tail. Quagsire going to be hit with the Bone Club. Bone Club would do quite a lot of damage. I mean, these Mud Slaps are adding up so significantly that we are now going to see a no shield. This Aqua Tail does not KO. K-Wack actually wins the ones versus Quagsire, which is unbelievable. He is going to let this go, choosing to concede switch advantage, but now he can go for energy on the Drapion. Palasha pivots out, but he throws first. That's very important because her switching out takes a turn. So him throwing first means that she doesn't get her full sneak, and he's always going to be 1 Poison Sting ahead. Aqua Tail, not going to threaten. It's the second one you have to worry about. And he overfarms confidently, playing to the CMP tie. He must be running a pretty high attack Drapion to have confidence in that matchup. Going to be committing the shield back, more than happy to match shields. The timer will be up for Paula, not able to make a catch, just choosing to stay in there. Aqua Tail is going to connect, and down goes Drapion. In comes that shiny ARIADOS for Palasha, and she gets the perfect catch onto the 1 HP Marowak. Marowak absorbing that damage, and now it's all up to the ARIADOS. We're going to see a switch out by Boom. He saves some energy, but he does not have a move, and now it's ARIADOS versus ARIADOS. She no longer has a way to reset debuffs, but he does. He has the Drapion. Lunge after lunge, connect. This endgame definitely going to be a tricky one. Lunge is going to connect. His lunge is doing almost nothing. He's going to fire off yet another lunge. And Palasha more than happy to overfarm and try and save energy for a potential Drapion switch in. She's going to fire off her lunge. After the debuffs, it will not be enough to knock out. He can survive. He's farming up. He switches, tries to get the Aqua Tail, but her reaction time is too good. Throwing the lunge, picking up the KO. He brings in his ARIADOS, and he makes the lunge, but he switched out. He reset the debuff, and at full power, his lunge KOs her ARIADOS. A masterclass there by Boom, and he's able to win game 3. We move to game 4, and it's ARIADOS versus ARIADOS, but Palasha has the higher attack. This means this lead matchup is a guaranteed loss for Boom. If he plays it out all the way, he will not be able to gain an advantage. So, what does he do? Does he just play this out? Or will he attempt to try and potentially do what he did in game 3, which is overfarm, save energy, reset a debuff, and hope that that energy is more valuable later on. So lunge after lunge is going to be traded. You see the pretty big difference in the health bar there, and he doesn't throw. This is intentional. He wants to save this energy. So the lunge is going to connect. He saves the energy. Bring in the Azumarill. Azumarill going to be hit with a lunge. Even if it was the Trailblaze, it's heavily, heavily debuffed. The lunge is going to connect, and now we have an Azumarill mirror. Boom is debuffed, which means this is a losing matchup for him. But again, the timers were misaligned. By her staying to throw a move, he can now switch well before she can. And he saved energy on his ARIADOS, and that energy is going to be a lot more valuable into an Azumarill than it would have been going up against an opposing ARIADOS while being heavily debuffed. So again, just taking energy that typically would not be useful and making it useful here. Choosing, actually tried to snipe, ends up catching, just choosing to let that energy go and saying, you know what, I think I can sweep with the Quagsire. Quagsire firing off the Stone Edge. Stone Edge should be enough to knock out here. It's going to be close. Stone Edge does barely pick up the knockout, and in comes the Marowak. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to use the energy that he had stored, but he was able to absorb a play rough, so in a weird way, it did end up working out there. Quagsire not going to make another Aqua Tail before the Bone Club is reached. Marowak forcing that shield back. Quagsire firing off another Aqua Tail, and Boom saved his Azumarill. Again, weaving in and out of these matchups. When someone desyncs the switch timer, take advantage of that fact, and he's been doing it game after game after game. Palasha is going to switch, trying for the catch. Boom gets as much energy as he can. He's at 100. He's hoping this Zero Bubble won't KO. It does. Palasha does not throw the move. She anticipated a switch out, but Boom's clock was just not yet up, and Boom is going to take the series 3-1 and advance to the grand finals. In the grand finals, he's going up against Colin 6. They played a best of 5. Colin, coming from the losers bracket, was able to win 3-1 to force a grand finals reset. Now, whoever wins this next best of 5 is going to be the Lille regional champion. And for game number 1, it's a bad lead for Boom. Azumarill into ARIADOS, safe switching into the Drapion, and Drapion able to outpace there, even with the 1-turn delay of switching, land an Aqua Tail, and now Colin sends in the Marowak. Marowak can very comfortably no-shield. This is why you bring Marowak on your team, to shut down those poison types. Marowak is going to get the full farm down and exit with quite a lot of energy. In comes the Azumarill. Azumarill more than happy to absorb Bone Clubs. Shadow Bone Clubs do add up over time on the Azumarill, but you would rather take this energy here than going up against some of your other Pokemon. We're going to see a switch and a snipe by the ARIADOS, as he's going to try and win with this ARIADOS. ARIADOS up energy. Malamar does lose the 2s here. So the question for Colin is, when does he want to use shields? There's still a pretty healthy Azumarill on the side of Boom. Boom, this could get very, very tricky for Colin very, very fast. He's going to fire off a lunge. What does Colin decide to do? Does he trust in the ARIADOS? He does. He lets the Malamar go. He's saying, without a shield, my ARIADOS is just going to get Ice Beamed. I have to save the shield. He's going for the lunge. Boom is going to shield because Boom wants to apply a debuff. And when debuffed, I don't think a lunge is going to be enough to knock out Boom's ARIADOS. This is going to be close. He's not going for it. He's going for an overfarm. He knows he needs maximum energy to try and outpace the Azumarill. So he's going to farm up, go for the Trailblaze. Trailblaze not going to be enough to knock out, as it is going to be resisted. There's the switch into Azumarill. Can Colin outpace? He cannot. The narrowest of margins. Boom gets the Ice Beam, knocks out the ARIADOS, and takes a game 1 win against Colin. In game number 2, it's Squid Games, as we have Malamar versus Malamar on the field. Psywave, of course, does next to nothing in this matchup, so you're very reliant on charge move damage to deal any kind of meaningful hits. We're going to see a switch out into the Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion going to get smacked with a Superpower. Superpower is going to land, and in comes the Quagsire. Quagsire going to be met with a Crunch. Crunch will do quite a lot of damage here. Crunch is going to land. We know an Aqua Tail after does not KO, but when a Crunch debuff happens, it does. And you can see there the eye roll from Boom. The 30% chance happens, and now he can't actually preserve that Quagsire without giving up a shield, and he didn't want to do that. So instead, he's just going to fully sacrifice the Quagsire and trust in the Malamar. In comes ARIADOS. ARIADOS is going to be committing the shield as Boom will fire off the foul play. He's now going to bring in his own ARIADOS, and this endgame is honestly up for grabs. Colin gets to apply the first debuff, but Colin's ARIADOS took quite a lot of damage from those Psywaves. Psywave does hit for super effective damage, and it's a very good move. It has a lot of damage, and it generates a lot of energy. Lunge is traded by the ARIADOSes. Switch clock will be up soon for Colin. Over farming, firing off a lunge. Boom knows this will not be enough to secure a knockout. So the lunge is going to land. Clock up for both of them. He's at the back-to-back lunges. Colin is going to let this go. The lunge will not be enough to KO. He's going to switch out. And it's a simultaneous switch. Malamar into Malamar. Who will get the double superpower first? It looks like Colin may have slightly more energy. Colin makes the superpower, but loses the CMP tie. But with Colin having clicked this move, Boom does not get his second move. That is a 1 turn of difference deciding this game. 0.5 seconds. He can lunge to KO, but Colin's ARIADOS is too healthy and has residual energy. The lunge is reached, and what an unbelievable game there. The battle of ARIADOS as Colin gets the equalizer in this best of 5. We now move to game number 3, and it's a bad lead for Boom. He's leading Malamar into the Shadow Drapion. Drapion striking first with a Crunch. Boom, immediate no shield. Very comfortable taking this damage. The Crunch debuff does not come through this game. Superpower will do a lot, and Colin is going to let this go. There's the switch out into the Quagsire. Quagsire going to be answered with the ARIADOS. ARIADOS, oh, he didn't even build up to the Stone Edge. He's just going for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail still going to be shielded, as these neutral mud shots do add up quite a bit, because a shielded Stone Edge would be catastrophic, because then Quagsire loses the pacing advantage. ARIADOS gets to its move every 10 turns. Quagsire gets Aqua Tail every 10 turns. So that's why he's only going for the Aqua Tail here, because a shielded Stone Edge would mean that ARIADOS could now outpace. But look at this. After landing the Aqua Tail, he mud shots down the ARIADOS. All that energy lost for Colin as he's unable to make it to a move. And his Quagsire is still so healthy. That's unbelievable matchup knowledge by Boom. In comes the Kanto Marowak. Marowak taking massive damage. We're going to see a huge overfarm by Boom. He's at the back-to-back Aqua Tails. The shield from Colin. We see a switch out into the Malamar trying to go for the catch. The catch is unsuccessful. And Drapion will fire off the Aqua Tail. Boom intentionally not throwing as he wants to get farm with the Quagsire. Quagsire gets a massive farm down, but Marowak denies the energy with the Bone Club. But the bad news for Colin is that there is an entire third Pokemon he had yet to see. In comes the Ariados, 2 Poison Stings later, and we're now at match point. It's the same leads as last game, leading the Malamar into the Drapion. Drapion is going to be met with a Superpower. Superpower is going to be no shield. That does substantial damage. In comes the Quagsire, answered with the Ariados once again. And we've seen this matchup play out. Quagsire does great here. Quagsire doesn't even have to build up to a Stone Edge. He can just go straight Aqua Tail and win the 2s. Colin is going to fire off the Trailblaze. Boom is going to shield. And honestly, the way Colin could fight back in this matchup is going for a lunge. But a no-shielded lunge would spell disaster. As now Quagsire, this is another Trailblaze, it's another shield. Quagsire is going to get the farm down. It's going to completely remove this Pokemon from the field of play. So Colin chooses to save it. He cannot concede that farm down. He saves the Ariados. In comes the Malamar. Malamar being met with Aqua Tail after Aqua Tail in this matchup. Malamar, only 1 shield left, going to use it here. We're going to see a switch out. Now it's Malamar into Malamar. Double Superpower reached. No shields left for Boom. And double Superpower should be enough to knock out his Malamar. So he falls just short of making it to that energy. At this point, the win con will be the Ariados in the back. He brings in the Quagsire. In comes Colin, and Colin will immediately fire off the Crunch, knocking out the Quagsire and saving the Malamar for later. In comes the Ariados. Ariados will be the key in this game for Boom, as he's going to look for the Poison Sting farm down. Crunch connects. Defense drop comes through. Colin has the Malamar, has his own Ariados, but he doesn't have the energy that he needs. He brings in the Ariados. He gets the double up, and we see the nod there from Colin. Boom, realizing it in this moment, he will be able to knock out the Malamar with a double super effective lunge, and Boom 20 is the 2025 Lille Regional Champion for Pokemon Go. All in all, these battles were an absolute masterclass in mechanics and matchup knowledge with Ariados. He was so incredibly precise with his Ariados gameplay, weaving in and out of teams, saving moves, chipping, knowing when to lunge and when to Trailblaze. It's a Pokemon that doesn't really use baits because both of its moves are 10 turns, but that doesn't mean it's a Pokemon without nuance. And it really goes to show Boom had a great understanding of the intricacies of Ariados and as well an understanding of how to beat the Ariados with the Quagsire, and that matchup knowledge proved to be instrumental in crowning him regional champion in his first ever Pokemon Go tournament. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.